They operate on very slim margins. Grocery profit margins typically run in the 20-25% range, which is, a big difference between their counterparts over in the restaurant area where their margins are maybe at 50%, and some of the hard lines companies that maintain margins at, at a higher rate than that. So what that means as an end result is that grocery stores, they really have a very small margin for error. They handle high volumes of perishable items, and they have to manage those from the supply chain through the customer point of sale in the transaction. They often have limited connectivity between stores, and that makes implementation of any technology very difficult. And then grocers also are really a connection point in their communities. They're a source for needed supplies in the event of some sort of an emergency, but they're also daily visited by their customer base. So, as I mentioned, they have really a limited room for error. Grocers, both in terms of financial mistakes that could bring financial hardships to the company, and mistakes with food handling or managing perishable goods, which could result in fines, lawsuits, any kind of an effect in the operations, as well as many other problems, which occur frequently. There's a high number of regulatory agencies that are concerned with grocery store businesses, and not only that, they operate in environments that are very challenging, both in terms of their locations geographically, but also just they deal with the same things other retailers do relative to winter storms and weather activity. I remember in Atlanta this past year, the city was basically shut down for 5 days, and although it wasn't something that was as catastrophic as what we're experienced in Japan, it was very difficult for retailers after a couple of days to maintain that business. And so logistics and replenishment and all of those challenges are something to think about, and they were all topics at FMI. So this past year, the general session topics, they ranged from social media to workplace violence to credit card processing. There was, as I mentioned, a very well-supported vendor community there, and overall it was a good show with great networking opportunities. I'd like to hit on 3 key trends that impact grocers that were really the hot topics from this last year's show. The first being the prevalence of social media, the second being the use of audits, and third, just preparedness as a way of life and some of the emergency management, business continuity, crisis management type topics. So let me start with social media. Like it or not, it's here to stay. Whether you're a big fan of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or any of the other dozens of social media sites, they are speaking loudly in your customers' communities and with your customers individually. And whether or not you plan to use social media channels proactively to market your company, people are going to use social media to talk about your company. The message here was consider several recent examples. One YouTube video that a customer on a United flight had his guitar broken. He was a music artist. He had his guitar broken, and he didn't get satisfaction from dealing directly with a company, so he posted a YouTube video that was very creative, and he garnered 1 million hits in just a very short time, and since then has had millions of hits. And of course, then the company responded very quickly to try to repair the relationship, but in a lot of ways that message was out and it was too late. Or if you think about recent cases of the Domino's pizza example, where there were some employees that took liberties with the food they were preparing in the back room, put the video on YouTube, and although the company did the right thing, they terminated the employees, they came out with public messaging, they were chasing the issue at that point. And so being proactive, the message from the presenter was being proactive with your social media content is a way to help prevent those things, but it's also a way to help with your overall business continuity. So consider some scenarios. When you think about your business, would your company be prepared to react? Would they react with conviction and consistency? What if an employee reports a coworker's posting on Facebook indicating they are taking a sick day to go to a baseball game? What if an employee tweets sensitive company information? What if customers are posting damaging complaints on Facebook about experiences at your stores? So when you think about the possibility of those things happening, I think we all recognize that there's a higher level of possibility or probability of those things occurring today than there was even a year ago. And so when that happens, who's going to respond? There's even examples of well-meaning employees at companies taking a stance to try to protect their company, but in doing so, they really say the wrong things. And they, in terms of social media, they're speaking for the company. It's not like days of old where the single corporate representative would have an opportunity to address the community or the customer base from the company's perspective. Today, you have the ability as an employee of any company to really represent to a large number of people. So one of the takeaways was being proactive. Have a social media policy that covers just some of the following points. If you're going to make hiring and firing decisions based on things posted on Facebook, it doesn't take much research to find today that college students more than ever are experiencing Facebook postings being considered in pre-employment screenings. Even acceptance into colleges and universities sometimes includes a look at someone's Facebook. There are companies out there today that are asking for access to people's personal Facebook accounts prior to making a hiring decision. And so those are all things that are probably discussion points somewhere in your company. And the presenter did a great job in connecting that to the smaller, independent, sort of family-owned business that represents a lot of FMI's customer base and how that's going to affect even those small companies. And how you monitor and handle those customer complaints or those employee interactions will be important, and so it's about pre-planning. Taking measures to monitor social media and activity on it proactively was her message. The presenter's name was Helen Levinson, and she's a principal at Desert Rose Design in the Chicago area. She did a great job. And so those were the takeaways from the social media content, and it was a very interactive general session, very well received by the group. What I've just covered so far, as well as the entirety of this webinar, will be sent out to everyone who's participating on the call, so you'll have the recorded notes. So if you're scrambling to try to take notes of names or important points, you'll have an opportunity to have that in a recorded version after we finish.